I'm Ilan Chernkar from Practicum. Together with us from our side, Irina Dikina,
Hey.
amazing career center project manager, David Baron from Toloka, Elena
Hello.
Johnson, also from Toloka. We have Oleg Pavlov, the first CSA crowd solutions architect ever. Hey, we have Mariana Leande also. Hey, Mariana, how are you doing?
Good, good.
So, guys, until we start, let's say we start in 7:05, so we can populate a little bit more. Anyone want to share like what was interesting that made him come today?
Not all at once.
Yeah. Maybe Andre, you want to share a little bit what was interesting in this event for you? Maybe
It's
not.
Connecting to audio.
Yeah.
I think it's speaking.
Yeah, probably. Anyone here wants to share a little bit what was interesting in the emerging data roles in a data-driven world? What's in it for them? What do you expect to get from this kind of evening webinar? We have shy guests, let's say.
Okay, but maybe you might want to explore what other opportunities are there, maybe interesting new roles, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So I think this is a good starting point. Or maybe you just want to be up to date with what's happening in a data-driven world. So you come to the right place.
Maybe it's interesting. Let's start in our own by being example. Maybe, yeah. We had this idea in the office, like I don't know, a month ago. Maybe we said, "Hey, let's do something together." Practicum, Toloka, let's join forces, see what comes out. What do you feel like? What's in it for you, David?
For me, the connection is feels kind of natural because, well, if I give a bit of a history, we started our collaboration with White Data, I think over a year ago, and we actually did a course together, which was kind of about what we're going to present and show you today. So naturally, when we started, like we came to Israel and we started working with a big focus on Israel, then Ilan and Ira and Alona and everyone who's helped organize this event, so we thought it could be a really nice addition, collaboration between us, because Practicum, and correct me if I'm wrong, but Practicum is all about giving people a new chance to get a new, let's say, experience and study a new role, basically. And with Toloka, we kind of hold a similar approach. You have Alona here, she's leading the CSA course and basically helping educating everyone on what this role can give you and help you also. So one thought was to start from like a joint webinar to see how we can all package this together. And after that, we also can discuss basically we are discussing how we can give value when we're joining forces. So for me, this connection was pretty natural because we hold kind of the same values, or at least values that are close to each other.
Thanks so much for sharing, David. Deep thought. I like that. For my side, actually, I think it's all about in Practicum and White Data, we're all about, of course, education. In Practicum, more for people without any prior background in data or developers or any tech roles. and why data is for the more savvy, let's say, people with already background in tech, in data, but basic one, even people with advanced STEM education that want to be part in the high-tech industry. And join forces with Toloka for me is understanding like, okay, this is the baseline. We're already on data science, data analysis. What's next? And you like guys are inventing the next steps. And I think like this is the title for us today, the emerging data roles in a data-driven world. With that said, let's get started, right?
Yes.
Amazing. So some very, very, very basics of data in a data-driven world from perspective for, let's say, organization, business, whatever. The first steps, you start by collecting data, learning about your audience, your users, your clients, your customers. Then you feel like, okay, you want to do something with the data, sort it out and send, okay, this is our early buyers, this is our heavy buyers, this is our partners, sort it out and arrange them in some way, by size of deal, maybe by lifetime, like LTV, maybe by cost of acquisition. You want to arrange them somehow. And then you have people that need to get some insights about it, presented visually. This is basically the roles of people like data analysts, right? But not only. Then when this data start to be accumulated in mass, so you get like, okay, how can I keep my stuff organized and systemized so it won't all go lost? And you feel, okay, I need some kind of engineering, the data engineer to put this sorted, right? Next text, okay, I want to explain my data to the stakeholders, not only with a nice graph. I want to tell a story about it. I want to ask questions that I even didn't think about. That's where data scientists come in role and research the questions that we usually cannot instinctively even think. Of course, that applies on machine learning, AI, and then like you're talking about big data and huge masses of data. And this is a conversation of a data-driven world, I think. What do you think?
All of us?
Whoever wants. It's a conversation. Let's keep it as a conversation and less like, I don't know, just one side speaking and everybody mute. So it takes a whole village of specialists to win this, to win with data. And with that said, I will pass it actually to you, David. And I'm really impressed by what you write, your last articles, and you really seem to be savvy about what's going on in the Israeli market in terms of data companies and the data market. So I give it to you now.
Thank you. Actually, it wasn't always like that. My journey with the data or data and AI started like a year and a half ago. So before that, I wasn't in the same field. And to give you a bit of a background, so hi, I'm David, and I'm in charge of community and partnership in Israel, partnerships. And not many people know here in our company, basically. I started as a data analyst. So I worked on tables and with SQL, so dealt with lots of data. So it was in a fintech company, which I got most of my background in. So that was my first window to working with data and numbers, and pretty like an interesting experience. Pretty fast, I think like a year, I went and I thought that I want to do something more. I want to connect with people and move further into business and business development. So I, in that fintech company, I actually was in charge. I created the entire Russian market, and then we basically had a entire new division that I led together in the company. And now a year and a half ago, basically I joined Toloka as to lead our Israel operation, the community, and the partnerships. And I want to basically tell you why or how it may be connected, or maybe you can get inspired from my stories, and it could be connected to what later on Oleg will tell you about. Next slide. Thank you. So we're talking about Israel, and we're talking about the AI machine learning market. So Elon, thank you for mentioning the articles that I wrote. We can later on share links with you, but basically it speaks about Israel as being the leader in the tech industry, and a big part of it is going into AI. So AI and machine learning is not just a buzzword or a sexy term, but it also, the numbers are also showing that. So actually more than a third of the capital investments in in the last year were in AI companies in Israel. So we're leading not only in tech as a general, but also in AI. And to give a bit more of a overview, or put words into a bit of a context. So data scientists are usually they didn't want to, or people could correct me if I'm wrong, but usually data scientists, they didn't want to deal with cleaning the data, collecting it, and we will get later to labeling it, which will be connected to the role we're trying to engage you in today. So nowadays, and this actually when new opportunities develop, nowadays data became the bottleneck in basically the development of every AI machine learning algorithm product company. And studies have shown, and people have testified, that around 80% of the time that is going to modeling and creating an AI model or product are going into data. And only 20% are actually going on building the machine learning models. So people started paying much more attention. And because they started paying much more attention to data, then you have to break it down. And Elon showed it, I think, in a really nice way. And I think it was the best representation on how different roles emerge in data science and in data as a whole. So hopefully I will give you some representation of how it looks like, and as Elon said, what is the next step. And just for you to know that data labeling, which we're going to talk about today also, it's not only about machine learning. You can use it also for marketing purposes and different applications as well. It's about working and utilizing a big crowd of people, common knowledge and expertise that could give you insights, basically. And artificial intelligence startups are basically in the pinnacle and on the top of every tech industry in the world. And to give a bit more of a context, at least 71% of Israeli machine learning startups are focused on B2B application. And the reason for that is that companies usually derive business solutions, business insights from these applications, and they are usually they're usually directed to businesses, from businesses. Next slide, please.
David, just to mention here a brief question.
Yes.
You mean like the reason for AI be applied on mainly B2B is because businesses like invest in, I don't know, reducing the cost of, I don't know, people. Once I need a lot of people to, I don't know, clean the data, so I now apply ML, so I don't need that much of people, so I reduce my cost. This is basically the logic.
Yeah, that's a really good question, actually. And I think it probably is a core reason for that, because you when you think about it, the consumer side is not aware of the algorithms that they use. So you as a business, your goal is to actually reduce the cost and make it more efficient and more automatic. So we are trying to make things much more easy on the end consumer, but the actual stakeholder or user of what we're going to talk about today, or the models in AI, are the businesses.
Mm-hmm.
But the end goal is actually, yes, to make it much more efficient, to work much more faster, and basically to make us all much more lazy.
Which is not definitely not a bad thing.
It's not a bad thing.
Okay.
Yes, and before we wanted to represent a bit of companies actually and products that are hiring data specialists, we call them, in different roles. But specifically, these companies like the big tech, like Amazon and eBay, Mobileye, which you're all familiar with, as well as smaller startups or high-tech companies that are constantly widening their role, scope, and positioning. So you see that different roles are born basically every few months. And think about it, like, let's say 5 years ago, nobody knew what exactly is machine learning engineers, or 10 years ago. And now this picture becomes more clear, but not to the fullest. And you see new roles emerging every day, basically. And they have a really strong position and why we should use them. And for that, I would like to give the torch to my colleague, Oleg. He's the leader of our Crowd Solution Architect group, and he will tell you more about what is a Crowd Solution Architect and why you should or should consider maybe gaining this skill.
Hey, Oleg, how are you?
Yeah, hi, folks. Hi, everyone. Thank you, David. Thank you, Ilan, for this introduction, this talk about Israel and market and data, how you say, landscape. So yeah, I will also briefly say something about myself. So I'm tech guy in my heart. So I studied math and engineering. After I got some experience in both in management and actually in project management and then crowdsourcing, building myself crowdsourcing pipelines. I will talk a little bit later what I mean by crowdsourcing processes and solutions. So yeah, people say I'm the first CSA in Toloka because actually CSA, it says crowd solution architect. So it's the guy, it's the role for a person who is actually in charge of building solution using crowdsourcing. Okay, let's move on. So what does actually mean I said? So let's check it on example and check what we actually mean by crowdsourcing. Sometimes when we deal with a lot of data, it's very hard to process it manually, yeah? And algorithms are not ready for all types of processing. So we need to involve people. Maybe not all of us know that, for example, to train a simple machine learning algorithm of, I don't know, face detection, which is used very widely, you actually need a lot of data already marked by hand. So, for example, to train such algorithm, you need, I don't know, several thousands of images. All faces are bounded with boxes. And such tasks could be solved using some in-house labeling. So you can hire people, ask them to do this task, but it's boring and for people and for business. And there is another approach. It's called crowdsourcing. So on the market, we have different platforms who offer such service. So one business who needs such a tool comes to this platform, and performers from the another end can register to this platform as judges, or I don't know how to call, on Toloka, we call them Tolokers. And basically the art and the power of this crowd solution architecture is how to make this task simple enough to be accessible to everyone who actually is present on the platform as a performer. Because as you may understand, some complex tasks are hard to solve even by the one who needs them. So crowd solution architecture is one who can decompose this task, who can design and build this as a solution which will work on large scale of data. And for this, such crowdsourcing platform, they have a lot of sophisticated tools for quality control, etc. Okay, let's move on and let's talk about this role. So what is it, CSA? Is it just a skill or is it a separate profession? Actually, it depends. It could be both in the same time. For example, if one of you is a data scientist or ML engineer or data analyst who needs a lot of data on a regular basis, and for example, you use vendors to buying data or something like that, or you use some open data sets, but you need some custom annotation for your data. So you can get this crowd solution architecture skill and use one of crowdsourcing platforms, for example, Toloka as a tool, and learn all the specific tools this crowdsourcing platform has. For example, how to ensure the good quality, or how to ensure the speed of labeling is good enough. Yeah, this is one part. And another part, as David says, this AI and data-driven world develops so fast. So a lot of companies, they require a separate role who will deal only with data labeling. For example, you have an ML department which consumes, I don't know, hundreds of millions of, I don't know, rows of data every day, and they need to process this data or even to collect it. And in such big companies, we already see that they need a separate person who will act only as a crowd solution architect. So the skill set here could be the same, but the the responsibilities could be a little bit different. So if someone acts only as a crowd solution architect, he will deal with data collection, data processing, and after he will forward it back to some ML people, engineers, data scientists, or whatever. Or if it is a skill for a data scientist, so he will basically annotate this data and consume it himself. So this is the main idea of crowd solution architect skill or a separate profession. But I don't know, guys, if you have questions, please ask them. But now I want to check one example and to see how actually, how actually this this skill could be applied. But first, let's see actually what is required. As I said, background should be technical because dealing with data requires a basic understanding of, I don't know, programming languages, of math, some stuff like this. Another foundation is understanding of basics of ML, because the majority of data is consumed by ML. So it's important to understand, for example, how main ML algorithm works, metrics and stuff like this. A lot of data transformation are usually done with Python, with common tools like Jupyter Notebooks. So those are essential skills. And of course, I call it here critical thinking. This is like a skill which is required to be able to actually to design and to build a solution, because every solution is a solution for a problem. And as you may imagine, each problem could have several different solutions. One could be more efficient, another a little bit less. So this skill can help crowd solution architect to find the more efficient solution, to be able to make it more efficient even later. Okay, so if someone may think that, okay, I want to be a crowd solution architect, how I can do this? As I said, you can, could you please go back? I don't know who is sharing the screen. Yeah, thank you. So from where I can switch from? As I said, it could be both. You could be a technical guy, for example, data analyst, so you can use your background as a strong foundation, or you can learn, you can be not very technical one, for example, a manager or, I don't know, program manager, but you will just get a basics of basic technical knowledges, as I mentioned here, Python and basic ML, and you can start develop yourself in this role. And of course, crowdsourcing platforms, for example, Toloka has own courses to educate CSAs, and there are a lot of courses on ML and data science, which could be helpful, and also open community, like, for example, Toloka Slack community. Okay, let's move on, and now we will speak about...
May I have a question?
Of course, please.
Can you go back?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. A question from a chat. So, Oleg, I just checked all the openings, vacancies in LinkedIn when you were talking, and there is no such thing as cloud solution architect as a vacancy. Yes, I know that it's as we discussed, it's really, let's say, new term. So, how do you suggest, for example, for people who are looking for a job and have all the skills and all the qualities, and they're very passionate about ML and AI. So how do you suggest to search for this kind of positions? How they can name it, what they should write in a search?
Yeah, thank you. It's actually a very good question, because as I said, sometimes it is considered as a skill, so it's not written in the topic, in the title of this vacancy. So it could be a data scientist who will deal with data labeling. Yeah, it could be called like this. Or it could be a data labeling manager. Or it could be a program manager for crowdsourcing. So sometimes it's called like this because in past, or even today, the main approach to dealing with data labeling is like vendor approach. So there is an outsourced company who actually sell data and collect or label data like as a turnkey solution. And usually in big companies, they have like program manager who deal with such vendors. And now they are like using the same naming for a new approach. They call it like program manager for crowdsourcing. It's not really a program manager because you need to have, as I said, some tech skills, but the name could be the same. Yeah.
Okay, I see. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, so let's check. Let's check actually what is the job about. Let's maybe take one example, and we took one fancy example about self-driving cars. So as you may heard about that, every automotive company, every car making company now tries to make their own self-driving cars, and how actually it works. Of course, it's very complicated technology, but the core of it is object detection. So car should detect objects on the road. Every object actually, pedestrians, other cars, and I don't know, road signs, and every type of object. And this is driven by, of course, machine learning. And this object detection algorithm should be trained on some data. And as I mentioned in the beginning, to train a good algorithm, you should have a lot of data. And this data should be annotated by somebody. And of course, it could be annotated by crowdsourcing, by crowd performers. So basically, the process is like this. You get some images from cars. After these images is annotated by annotators, and after the model is learning, after it's evaluated, and for some rare scenarios, you collect more data and you relabel it, and this cycle will go on, I can say, forever. Okay, and let's move on to how solution for this crowdsourcing solution for such object detection algorithm data collection could look like. So it may look a little bit complicated, but I will explain. Look,
a little.
Yeah, just a little bit complicated. Yeah. So basically, you have a separate flow of data for each type of object. For example, here you may see road, people, cars, and so on, road signs, I don't know, traffic lights, and so on. But how we can understand if we have such object on the image or not? So there is a first stage, which is called is the object on photo or not. So basically it's a classification project, and we ask performers to decide if there is a road on this photo or not, if there are people or not. This is like a first step. So second step is actual object detection and how we detect objects. It could be many different tools. The most common tool is bounding it with box. So the second task for crowd performers will be to actually draw a box around an object. For example, if it's a car, we ask performer to draw an object around this car. And the third part is about how to check if this annotation was good or not. So we will ask this third group of performers to actually check if this bounding box was good or not. So as you see, this solution is complex, and it contains 3 separate crowdsourcing tasks, and combining them together actually give us this solution. What you see on the left side, training plus exam, is actually the part of this solution, because we have not only the flow of data and separating them by type, but the flow of performance. So we need to train them first, we want to examine them first. And if you're familiar with machine learning, you may know that to train your machine learning algorithm, you also need training data. You also need validation data. So the process of education of our crowd performer is very, very similar to machine learning. That's why being machine learning engineer is very helpful to being CSA. And also being CSA prepares you to be a machine learning engineer. So those roles are very close. And on the right side, you may see the word aggregate. It's one of the crucial concepts of crowdsourcing. How actually we can be sure that the quality of annotation is good. One of the main concepts is like we ask more than one performer to make every annotation. This is called overlap. And after we have a process of results aggregation. Actually, it's very, deep topic, and there are a lot of, math and science, which aggregation models could be used for different types of tasks. I don't want to go to the details, but I just wanted to share that it is very important how we will understand by, for example, 3 answers, which one is more probably correct one. Using all these sophisticated approaches, we will come with final aggregated results, and in this scenario it will give us a set of initial photos, but with bounded boxes drawn around all the objects. And this end results of crowdsourcing solution will be actually the input for our ML object detection algorithm training. So, and the job of crowd solution architect is actually to design such solutions and to build them and to, set them up on scale. Because as you might understand, some data labeling pipelines could run for a very long time. For example, this one could run, I don't know, every day. So you may have more data to be labeled every day. And yeah, this pipeline should be scalable and automated. So this is also the part of crowd solution architect job. So this is it about these examples. Maybe some other questions.
Can I just ask a question? For me, this is a really good example, and I think for me it would be interesting. I think for the audience as well. Why do we break it like such a task? Why do we break it 3 parts?
Exactly. Yeah, it's a very good point. Thank you, David. As I said in the beginning, that our crowd performers, they are, I may use a word, unqualified, but not in the in the bad meaning. But that means that they are not qualified to be, professional annotators for images. So, and we want the single task to be as simple as possible. That's why we are trying to, we call it decompose the big task into simpler ones. because otherwise this training and exam process would be much more complicated. For example, the conversion rate from training to the main task would be much less. Imagine if you want, to train people to solve this very, very complicated task, because for images from streets, you might have, I don't know, tens of objects on every image, and it will be very, very complicated task how not to annotate everything in one task. So we are trying to simplify this big task and to make it accessible for everyone. This is the power of crowdsourcing, and it benefits both our talkers, performers, and of course, customers. Yeah.
Can I have a question, please? I'm trying to simplify it to myself because I do not come from a technical background. And when I try to understand more about it, so then the performers are actually trainers, as I'm trying to, let's say, teach my son, this is a dog. And when he points a cat, I tell him, no, this is not a cat. This is not a dog, this is a cat. It's another thing. So the trainers are something like they're teaching instead of as I teach my son. So they teach the ML, the AI, like what is right and wrong. Is it something like that?
Yeah, absolutely. If you are asking about this part on the left, which is called training and exam, yeah, absolutely. This is the very similar how actually human beings perceive the world, because we have a feedback. Yeah, in your case, it's a feedback from you as a father. Yeah, and here it's a feedback from a customer. So then customer designs the training. Training basically contains from the same tasks. So it's like an image with a correct answer. If we have a task to define if there is a car on this image, you certainly will have a correct answer for this question. And if someone during the training will answer incorrectly, you will basically give him feedback saying, oh, there is a car on this image, please take a look, I don't know, on left top corner. And using this training, as you see, I didn't want to go too much to details, but between training and exam, you see this number 25%. So we require only 25% of correct answer after the training. For example, why? Because we want people to have opportunity to make mistakes. Yeah, because during training it's fine. You should not make mistakes during the exam. Yeah, it's like in the real life. That's why we do have an exam after this. And after you trained, you took different examples. For example, in this particular task, you may have some cars, very far from you, and you may have some cars hidden in the dark or hidden in the fog, or I don't know, or only a part of car is visible behind the building or something. So you will learn all these corner cases during the training. And after, if you pass an exam, if you really try to learn it, it's not complicated. As I said, we try to decompose the tasks. So you will pass an exam and you will get access to main labeling, and you will actually contribute and of course earn money, because it's not for free, it's not charity. Everybody work here to earn money. Yeah.
What alternatives do companies have instead of outsourcing these data laborers, performers? Like, do they have their own? They hire special people to sit in their office and label data? What alternatives do they have?
Actually, yes. I like to explain this. In the data labeling world, have only 3 ways to work with to label the data. The first one is we are talking about right now. It's crowdsourcing. Yeah. The second one we touched a little bit. It's called like managed approach, when you basically hire a company who have their internal people, and you just buy a turnkey solution. Yeah, you say, I want this data set to be labeled in that way, and they will bring you, I don't know, in a month the result for you. Mm-hmm. And the third one you mentioned is about in-house labeling. So you hire some people to your company and you teach them, you give them tools for labeling, and you control their work. So this is like a third way. And actually, all of them have their pros and cons, of course. Yeah.
Right. Ooh,
Actually, we're already on this section. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
maybe guests want to ask questions. If comfortable, also in Russian, it's okay.
You can write it in the chat or maybe.
Right.
Hi. I thought that somebody wanted to ask a question. But let's just pick a topic. So I think we haven't touched it, but why is why do we need labeled data?
I suppose it's a question for me. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
okay.
I can answer that, but
I touched little bit. Then I was talking about machine learning. That actually, to train the model, you need labeled data. But it may be not clear how it works. But now a lot of people say that, oh, I don't know, algorithms will replace all the everybody. For example, drivers will be replaced by self-driving cars, and I don't know. So everybody will be replaced. But actually, it's not true, because to train algorithms, to train, for example, neural networks and other algorithms, you actually need human labeled data. And there is no way to prepare this data without humans. Machine learning can help here, but you need labeled data. As I said, if you want face detection, you need a data set which shows you various a face on every photo. So, and this detection could be done only by humans, yeah, initially, of course.
Thank you, Oleg. And actually, I just want to add to that before we move to the next question, that actually, when you look at the numbers, and we're doing the research and we're doing it all the time. So actually, as the demand for AI grows and the applications are growing even bigger, the demand for human labeled data grows as well. And it goes up until to like 8-10 years from now. It grows like 30% a year, the demand for human labeled data. So it's funny because you're doing applications that are supposed to replace manual labor, but you are like say, based on the manual label, you have to have them as well. And also, Oleg, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it's the algorithm is not done when it's getting the first, let's say, label data. So they're also the part of retraining and making the algorithm work even better at every iteration, right?
Yeah, of course. Look, I see there is a question in the chat from Maxim. So the question is, do you think human translators will be eventually replaced by machine translation engines? I can try to answer, David. I don't know if you have something to say, you may add. I think translation is very, very sensitive, how you say, domain, because translation is also an art. For example, if you translate a book, nobody will replace human translator ever. Even professional translation is like very, very complicated, profession. But of course, translations are required very widely everywhere. All, for example, internet services like common conversation and stuff. So here, machine translation engines will be better and better and better. For example, recently we've seen a new feature about like live video translation, and not only in a form of subtitles, but in a form of speech. Yeah, and so this is like a future of translation. So like our everyday usage will be automated, but some core use cases like books, I don't know, or important documents will be never translated. Yeah. Will be never replaced by automated. This is my opinion, of course.
Actually, I want to add to that, if I may. I have some sort of a different opinion on that, because I'm sure you're aware of all like this DALL-E 2, from OpenAI. So this great
GPT-3,
yeah,
the AI engine that can make photographs. You describe what you want, and they just draw you an original picture from scratch.
So imagine that now you also these technologies could also be applied to writing books or writing stories. So you have machines writing actual interesting stories, basically giving them some, you know, a few words to derive from. So I think that's like nobody knows actually. Like if we speak about it, will human translators be eventually replaced? Probably not as a whole, but I think that the skills that the translators have probably will be upgraded in some sort of a way, and could be used, for example, to validate some translation. So you still have to have like a human to check it. But basically, this profession is not going to disappear, but rather change. Like we saw also, you have taxi drivers, and now we slowly starting to see like self-driving cars that will take people from point A to point B. So this is a really good question, and I think there's many predictions to it, but nobody really knows. I think that there's
Maxime also wrote here a comment. Sounds very much like the case with cinema vs the theater. People used to say the cinema would replace theater altogether, but it never happened. And actually, true point. Maybe AI can add, you know, when you just need to translate from this language to another language using, I don't know, Yandex Translate or Google Translate, whatever translate is good enough. But if you need to write an original piece with humor, with context, it's not there.
But look at DALL-E 2. I need to disagree, because look at DALL-E 2. It actually can produce artistic and amazing like pictures and art. And actually, I saw I think a video recently that I think it's Vogue who actually used it for the cover of their latest edition, and they did a few iterations, and it came out amazing, and they used it.
I think, David, yeah, it's very interesting, but it's like a separate discussion between, you know, art and AI and stuff. I don't know if you guys are ready for this.
Too mind-blowing for this time at the evening.
Well,
let's wrap a little bit. We have some gift at the end, right? I just want to mention that at the moment in Israel, whoever wants to get engaged with learning applied data science, we have white data opening till August. You can apply. And in practicum, whoever here is into getting don't have any background in data and want to get into an entry-level position of data analysis, we have that in practicum. You can scan here the QR code and connect me on LinkedIn for more details. But for actually getting your hands dirty on CSA, guys from Toloka here gave us a crash course. You can scan this QR code also. They have, I think it's a 2-week training, right? Something like that. This is how long it takes to get certified. And you can get all the basics there. So you're more than welcome to scan and play a little bit with this training program. Kudos to the guys from Toloka for making this for free and accessible to all. Thanks, Elena. I know you're very invested on that part. And with that said, yeah, some closing.
Can I ask this a question before you continue? Is the course like 2 weeks? Is it mandatory? Yelena, can you?
Well, actually, the course is really self-paced. We say that it takes about like around 2 weeks, but it can take you faster if you have enough free time, or you can take it like together. For example, if you want to apply the knowledge that Oleg has been talking about to your current job, you can take it well at your own pace. And well, actually,
and this is a practical course, right?
Yeah, it's 100% practical course, and at every step you will like first practice, and the practice is only then backed up by the theory needed for the step. And so as Elon has already mentioned, you will study all the core basics of crowdsourcing through our platform.
Cool.
Anybody last question, or we can wrap up?
Oh, can I add a little bit?
Sure.
So once you decide to register, there is this one important point about the course. So once you decide to register on the course, in the form registration, we ask you to mention the company and the team. You may skip both of these questions, just put a dash there, but please mention in one of them that you were at Practicum events. That would really help us. Thank you.
Great, amazing. So guys, you can follow us on meetup.com under the name White Data. We're based here in Israel. And we upload like all the materials. Everyone who was registered will get also the recording of this event. We run about a bi-weekly webinar, monthly meetup that we actually get out of the screen and meet in person, which is also exciting after COVID. Little fresh air outside and speak and talk and shake hands and have beers together. So thank you so much. We're here for anything. On social medias, you can just check for Practicum Israel as well. LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, even TikTok. We have a new channel now.
Actually, we might consider, Oleg, maybe we should open a TikTok.
So thank you so much, guys, and have a super lovely evening.
And by the way, each of you will get a newsletter with recording of this video and with the links to all our social media, which Elon mentioned, and all the social media of Toloka for sure. So you can follow us everywhere. And when you have, when or if you have any questions, just know that all of us, we are completely open to speak all the languages, and we'll be happy to help you to answer any question, whatever when you feel let's say, comfortable and ready to ask them. And again, thank you for coming today.
And thank you, the guys from Practicum.
You're welcome, Maxim.
Yeah, thanks everyone. It was a pleasure.
Thank you for joining.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.